pull the starter early, the bullpen feasts, a little vintage Guardians to get that split. Remember the Undertaker matches later in his career when he went back to the top rope move where he'd have him by the arm and he'd climb up to the top rope and then he'd jump off and club him in the back of the head, and it was old school Undertaker. He pulled that out of his old bag of tricks, and it was every match. I think they just called it old school. And
okay,
because I don't know if it ever really had a name, but you waited for it. Every match you knew it was going to get to that point because that's just what he does at this point in his career. You knew he was going to pull it out. Everyone wanted to see it. It was the old school Undertaker. Well, I feel like this game was a little old school Guardians. It was the formula. Have they trademarked that? Is it restricted? They got a little copyright symbol next to that. This is the formula. Pull the starter early, get into the world's best bullpen, and make sure Emmanuel Clase is in there to close it out late. And just get enough runs to squeak by. It's exactly how they draw it up, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, they choke-slammed the Rays to hell on Saturday and Sunday. Would you say that? You want to do some Undertaker puns here?
Gave him the last ride.
There you go.
Out of town.
Yeah, the formula is the same as it was 8 years ago. They didn't plan this. This isn't. It's funny that the team that's had this vaunted pitching factory forever, starting pitchers come up year after year, out of nowhere they pop up, and next thing you know, they're Cy Young contenders. And yet, here's another year where, as they make their way through October, they're going to try to do it by minimizing the impact of the starting pitcher and how long they're out there and leaning on that bullpen. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it's unbelievable, like the success rate. I mean, we've seen the numbers about their, what are they now, 67-2 when leading after 6 innings, which is absurd. But it is crazy how consistent Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, Tim Aaron, and Emmanuel Clase have been, because even when you have a really good bullpen and you have a few guys you can rely on, it's not like this. This is just so automatic every time.
You have the confidence to pull a starter before he even goes past 60 pitches when he had been cruising.
Yeah.
Now, Ben Lively has basically this entire season has been cruising until he wasn't. And they have done such a great job of making sure the wasn't was rare. If he was losing it late in they knew. They were ready for it. And that's been pretty much every Ben Lively start. So I think everybody breathes a sigh of relief. He comes off of the outing where he had to leave early because he takes the comebacker off the body. And, at this point in the year, for a guy that's never been as deep into this season, doesn't have the inning total and been a starter this deep in the season, having the amount of success and the amount you're relying on him. So getting him back on the mound and seeing more of that guy, feeling like they had turned a corner right before that Chicago start, that was a big sigh of relief, I think, for all of us, especially because I don't know what Cobb is going to, when he's going to be back, what you're going to get out of him. So there's a lot here that it helps me to breathe easy knowing that Ben Lively can continue to be the guy that gets you into the 5th or 6th inning. Because then when you got the lead, I have no hesitation handing to the ball you just laid out the list. It's an unbelievable. I think anybody would have said they're going to have a hiccup at some point because this is just not sustainable for guys with this lack of experience outside of Clase in the 9th inning. But they just continue to do it every single night to the point where, I mean, when you hand that ball to the bullpen, do you even remotely think that there's a chance they're going to lose this game? Because I certainly don't.
No, a 2-run lead feels like 10, and
right.
It's quick. It's effortless. It's every day. I mean, it's really interesting too how, like, if he has those guys available, if they haven't pitched in a day or two, there's no hesitation. Like, it's not like, hey, maybe see if the starter can get to the 7th, and then we'll pick 2 or 3 of those guys to go the rest of the way. No, it's just get through 5, maybe into the 6th, and then we're unleashing all of them. They're all going to pitch. It's different. The thing that was weird about 16 was they got Miller. Like, the bullpen was good. You had Cody Allen. He wasn't like Emmanuel Clase, where it's just 1, 2, 3, and 8 pitches every time. But he was a very trustworthy closer then. You had Brian Shaw setting him up, and then you had a lot of like veteran guys with like okay stuff having really good years. Otero, McAllister, Manship. This is different. This is like Cade Smith has the best fastball in baseball by the metrics. This is Tim Herron at 6'7" or whatever he is, throwing it 96 miles an hour from a funky left-handed delivery. This is Hunter Gaddis, who has gone from a guy who was a struggling spot starter to, hey, here's this 90-mile-an-hour slider that you can't hit, and then I'm going to place this fastball perfectly on the corner, and you better hope it's not a changeup either. Like, and then Clase, like it's elite stuff, and so they don't always have to have their best stuff. They don't have to be perfect every time out. They can still be effective, and I think, that's what's crazy is like I think back to that. What made that 16 run so incredible was Trevor Bauer leaves in the first inning, and they have to piece together 8+ with guys who like I don't know if Dan Otero is trustworthy to get 4 outs in this playoff game. But like, would you have any qualms throwing Cade Smith for 2 innings in the playoffs or throwing Tim Herron to get 5 guys out?
No.
Like it's.
You're going for that. That's what you're aiming for. You
Right.
want to get to that point.
Right. So in 16, I think you trusted Miller, Allen, and Shaw that way. And then you had a few guys who, and I think the Guardians still want to find a couple more guys who can be like the Otero, the Manship, the McAllister, if you need them in the playoffs. If, Boyd goes 3 or whoever is starting, we can play your game if you want, goes 4 innings, and you need more than just the core 4. But those 4, you trust implicitly. If you're going to lose in the playoffs and like Cade Smith gives it up one game, like that happens. Like that sucks, but that happens. He was so dominant all season that if that's you'd rather lose with him on the mound than lose because you left, Ben Lively in 2 hitters too long, right?
Exactly. And every time I see it play out the way that everybody would draw it up, it gives me hope about what lies ahead in the postseason. Because if we're doing the old throw a newspaper graphic together of this team versus this team, third base versus third base, left field versus left field, I don't know how many teams I would feel like the Guardians would come out on top. But in the culmination of how they get there, and seeing a team that has the blueprint in place for them to win games, I am hopeful that the offense can be good enough and that the starting pitching can kind of just follow the same route they have been here recently. You don't have to be the peak Pedro here to be able to have success as a starter. But if you give this team a good enough outing, 2-3 runs into the 5th or 6th inning, then you've shortened the game, and it's beyond the point of expecting now the other shoe to drop. It is the expectation now is for me just for this to continue through the rest of the year, and the more shocking outcome is no longer that they're going to continue to be this dominant; it's that they're not going to be this dominant.
I mean, it's not even right. Like they have a dominant bullpen. It's so much more dominant than anybody else's. Before Sunday, when they tacked on another 4 scoreless, their ERA as a bullpen was 2.70. Next closest, Atlanta at 3.13. The 5th best bullpen in baseball, that ERA, Dodgers at 3.61. So the difference between 1 and 5 is almost a full run. The difference between 1 and 5 is the same as the difference between 5 and 27. So that shows you just how much of a weapon this is. Just a benefit for Stephen Vogt. The way you can manage completely differently. The Royals have really good starting pitching, and you'd love to have that going into October. Like that's such a benefit. They're going to have to ride those guys. Like it's got to be Lugo for as long as he can. It's got to be Cole Reagans for as long as he can go because they don't have as many trustworthy commodities in the bullpen. So it's interesting. Just like I think managers have to manage very differently depending on how their roster functions. And the one benefit in the playoffs when you have a bullpen like this is you can stack it. You can put 9 guys out there, and you don't need a long reliever. You can have some. You can get creative. You can have Tristan McKenzie back there to use in case of an emergency, or if you want someone for multiple innings in a certain type of game. You can do a lot of different things. So I think it's a good spot to be in. I'm trying to think of a team. I know the Rangers bullpen last year was extremely shaky, and that's why they addressed it at the trade deadline. I can't. Have there been teams that have won the World Series with a terrible bullpen? I'm sure it's happened, but it would be a terrifying way to try to navigate October.
I think the Nationals, the year the Nationals, didn't they have to throw another starter for 3 innings after the first starter went 6? I feel like that sticks in my brain. I don't remember, but it certainly makes it a lot easier. When you don't have the elite starters, you have to get the elite innings from somewhere and if it comes from the bullpen, that's fine, and you can shrink it in the bullpen, and you can rely more on the guys that you trust. Now, the beautiful thing for just the entire season is that Stephen Vogt it's been pretty easy, even beyond the core guys that he trusts. You've had Eli Morgan. You've had earlier in the season it was Nick Sandlin. He was tremendous, and then he's lost it. But there have been other guys that have stepped in. Avila has been great in that long soaking up innings role. But in the playoffs, then you don't have. We're looking at what the ERAs are for the entire team, but what's the ERA of the core guys that you're actually going to throw in the playoffs? How much better are they than even where this team is at now compared to whatever everybody else has been throwing? It's incredible. I was thinking today more about the Rookie of the Year because you've got 3 in that pen that have been so key for this Guardians team. But I've been hearing it so matter-of-factly that Austin Wells he's on track to be the Rookie of the Year for the Yankees. And he's doing it largely with a lot of defense as the catcher there for New York, because offensively it's not anything tremendous. It's fine for a rookie. 116 WRC+. Have no problem with that, and he leads all rookies in the American League in terms of wins above replacement, having passed Colton Cowser. But we've had this conversation before about certainly Smith should be somewhere among the Rookie of the Year vote getters. But how do you even separate what he has done, what Hunter Gaddis has continued to do? I mean, if you're looking at pure run prevention, Hunter Gaddis has been better in terms of ERA. Now, I know the strikeouts, that impacts things to give Smith the higher FIP, which is why he's going to be higher in Fangraphs WAR. But how do you separate those two and say, sorry, Gaddis, I actually am going to go with the guy that has the higher ERA than you and has occupied the 6th inning compared to you in the 8th? They're all critical innings. They're all big innings. They're all big outs for this team.
I think we should double check this. I think Hunter Gaddis exhausted his rookie eligibility last year.
Did he?
There was some debate about it. I thought I had read both.
I've heard it both ways. Okay, well,
I think I've heard it both ways. I think I've said it both ways.
Just for clarity,
your main point, though.
Fangraphs still lists him among the rookies. If you click the box for rookies, it still lists him there. So
I think Baseball Reference does not. I think he was right on the border.
The war continues.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a tough one. Those awards where, and MVP is different because I don't know that I've ever thrown pitchers on my MVP ballot. But rookie is tough because you're right. It's like, how do you compare a slightly or solidly above average position player rookie to a dude who's been pitching at high leverage since the 3rd day of the season? I remember Cade Smith didn't know he was going to be on the roster till opening day. And then I think he pitched in game 2 or game 3 and he came in 2 innings, 5 strikeouts, scoreless. I remember David Fry saying okay, yeah, he's staying here. He's not going anywhere. And you look up, and now the guy's got 98 strikeouts in 72 innings, and he's having one of those Andrew Miller-like years where he's the stopper. You go get him when you need someone to clean up a mess. You need someone to bridge the gap to Gaddis and Clase, and he's been unbelievable. He's going to have triple-digit strikeouts, which is just wild. He doesn't give up home runs. He doesn't really walk guys. Yeah, his ERA is down to 2. I mean, if he finishes the season at like 195 with 108 strikeouts, like what? Man, that's a really good. That's and all again. Like it's not like he spent half the season pitching in mop-up duty or coming in when they're down 6-4. Like this is a guy who he really ascended to the high leverage innings quickly. So I think the Rookie of the Year race is one where I actually think like the narrative or the context is really important, because rookies are often, they've got training wheels for the first X number of games in a season until they earn trust. And for him, that hasn't been the case. And I think that should matter. He's not putting up these numbers in a losing effort or in low leverage. Like the guy is constantly pitching when it's really important.
That's the fascinating thing, is that you look at the makeup of this pen, and it all works because they're all doing their jobs independently. You can use Cade Smith to come out in the 5th or 6th inning to put out a fire because Hunter Gaddis has been nails in the 8th. You know that Tim Herron has been very good, and you can trust him to occupy coming in with nobody on base in the 7th inning, and he's going to comfortably get you the ball at least through part of the 7th inning, that you don't have to question whether you would bring in Gaddis for an extra batter in the 8th or something like that, because they all do their jobs. And I know nothing really matters unless Emmanuel Clase just continues to be the most steady force at the back of any bullpen I have ever seen. It's I know you get caught up in what you have seen most recently, but I challenge you to find a more dominant relief season than we are witnessing with Clase. It's a different baseball environment. So, yes, we have seen dominant performances. I don't know what a guy pitching in 2013, how he would fare in 2024. I don't know. We could compare across eras with certain statistics, but just by watching the eye test, there is nothing ever hanging in the balance in the 9th inning. Ever. 2-run lead, Clase is coming on. I mean, if it's a 1-run lead, I think maybe someone accidentally will have a double and then ground out and then a fly ball. Maybe that could happen. 2-run lead? No freaking chance, my man. Nothing. There's not a chance that you don't get that victory. That's just the level of stability that is back there is incredible.
Yeah, he's going to pass. Well, he's going to tie and pass Jose Mesa's single season record for saves pretty soon. Clase just set his own record with 45, which ties Joe Borowski and Bob Wickman for second on the franchise list. But the one season that comes to mind, and if we're just looking at this through a Cleveland lens, it would be Jose Mesa in 1995. Mesa had 46 saves, a 1.12 ERA, and I think he blew 2 saves, but they won both games anyway. So it was as close to automatic as you can get. And, Mesa wasn't a guy who was going to blow you away and put up gaudy strikeout numbers either. And I don't think pitchers fell in love with the strikeout back then like they have in recent years either. So it's like that's what it reminds me of. But he's... I mean, he pitches a scoreless inning and his ERA doesn't budge, or like maybe it drops 1 from 0.67 to 0.66. Like he'd have to pitch forever to get it down to like 0.40. So it's incredible. And I think the one thing, you talked about setting up for him, getting to the 9th inning. If Cade Smith has to get an out in the 6th and come back for the 7th, that doesn't throw him off. If Tim Herron has to enter in the middle of an inning and there's guys on base, that doesn't throw him off. These guys, it doesn't matter what the situation is. And I think they've done a good job pitching everybody in different circumstances so that you're accustomed to whatever's thrown at you, which is going to be essential in the playoffs. It's if Cade Smith comes on with the bases loaded and 2 outs in the 5th, and then has to go back out there after a 10-minute break in the 6th, he's not going to be phased. And so that helps. It's been an underrated storyline this year, but Stephen Vogt spending a year as the Mariners bullpen, and they had a very good, talented bullpen last year, I think that's a huge benefit here. He knows, especially with a rookie bullpen coach in Brad Goldberg, like he knows how to use these guys, when to use these guys, when to get guys up. Has there been a point in the season where we're like, why'd you go to this guy here? That is an easy thing to criticize.
And I can count them on maybe a hand.
Yeah.
Maybe a hand. The times we've criticized. And what I also love about the way that it's been managed, it has been managed. You will see when especially, I felt like earlier in the year when the starters weren't giving them anything, there would be times where he would, I thought he did a great job of, if he needed an extra out, he would get it from the guy that's already on the mound, but it wouldn't be like, the guy is in, so he's automatically going to go 2 innings. It would be, he's going to go an inning and 2/3. So he's going to almost get me to what I want, but then I'm going to count on the next guy to give me just a little bit. Just give me an inning and a third. And then the next guy would come in and he would give me something similar, an inning and a third. And that's when he was trying to stretch to cover for the innings. I felt like early would have been easy to just say, well, I got to sell out for these wins. And I'm not getting anything from my starters, so everybody's just going to be, we're going to rely on them heavily. And they have. I mean, look at the game totals of, it's incredible to be with rookies or maybe not rookies, depending on their eligibility, but guys without this experience pitching deep and being a reliever like this into a season, despite the hefty game totals, I don't feel like anybody's really been worked to the bone. Do you feel like anybody is really out of gas at this point? Because I think to manage it the way that he has and keep everybody still fresh, even though it really looks like they shouldn't be, that's pretty incredible.
I almost want to say like their mini stretches of funks in recent weeks have kind of benefited them because they've been able to run away from those guys for a few days at a time. Yeah, I mean, Cade Smith's going to wind up around 77 innings. Like it's a little high. It's a little high considering you also want these guys to give you 10 to 15 innings in the playoffs in a perfect world. But you can limit their workload in March in Arizona and be a little more cautious next season. But it's also, I think there are still things to gain from these last 2 weeks with the bullpen with Andrew Walters. Can you maybe not use Hunter Gaddis or Cade Smith in a certain game and throw Walters out there and see if he can swim? I think you still need to do whatever you can to find one more guy. Is it Sandlin? Is it Eli Morgan? Is it Tristan McKenzie? Someone who you can call up or
You're trying to make that
game.
Tristan thing work. You're really trying.
Well, I think they should have started it earlier. We were saying on this podcast for weeks, the starter thing is not going to happen in 2024. So put him in the bullpen, and if he can give you a couple innings or even one inning where the mission is just attack, 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 don't save anything for later in the game, maybe that would help. And through two trials of this, it's working wonders so far. The problem is you only have 2 more weeks left of the regular season, and what do you need to see to trust him?
Is there any truth to this actually being your idea? Because I know they told you, oh, yeah, that's something we could consider. I'm pretty sure that when you asked about that, they were done talking to you, and then they said, hey, maybe we should throw Tristan.
You hear that? Well,
I think it was your idea. I think you told them. You informed them.
Well, they informed us that Miles Straw's in consideration too. So there's anything could happen here. If anybody in Columbus apparently has the potential to be on this October roster.
Well, they've already made some changes. I mean, you mentioned Walters coming up here, and it'll be fun to see. Not only can this guy help them in the postseason, which, as you laid out on a recent show, he would be eligible. It'd be fine. They can get him on the big league roster, no problem. Also, they sent Tyler Freeman down to the minor leagues. That's something we talked about, and clearly the organization saw the same things that we were with him. And even now, since making the move, and I know they bring Martinez up because I think they feel like it's a better short-term Quan replacement than maybe Tyler Freeman would have been in the outfield. So maybe that plays into it too. But just looking at quality of the at-bats and how they fit on the roster, Martinez just looks like someone that can contribute even when Quan returns to the lineup. He could contribute, could stick around. Tyler Freeman, it was tough to know where, with Lane Thomas now occupying a lot of those center field at-bats, and then you have Jhonkensy Noel either starting in right field or being the pinch hitter off the bench, and then you have Fry. I just was struggling to see where Freeman would fit. And I think Martinez just looks more capable at this point in the season to be able to help you. So I'm glad that they made that call because it was getting pretty tiring to see Tyler Freeman at bats going the way that they were.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it was evidenced by the playing time. It had decreased pretty dramatically. And you said it, Lane Thomas is the everyday center fielder now. Noel and Brennan are platooning in right field, sort of. There are fewer chances for Jose Ramirez to DH because you've got Manzardo and David Fry splitting those duties most days. So that, you don't have the open spot at third base once or twice a week that you had earlier in the season. Rocchio has hit better. You've seen him at shortstop, and on days he wasn't playing shortstop, it's been Daniel Schneemann. So, yeah, I mean, it's as simple as there weren't opportunities, and he didn't convince them that there should be opportunities for him. We'll see where Martinez fits. Quan, they've said, is a day-to-day type thing. We'll see how long that lasts. I don't know. The offense is just, they're going to look good and play guard ball for a couple days, and then they're going to go ice cold for a couple days. And I think that's just who they are at this point in time. And maybe that works in the playoffs. I mean, you're going to have to hope that they play enough guard ball to squeeze out some runs because it's a tougher run environment for sure. But, it's the same formula as 2016. It really is. It's the bullpen is what will carry them. It has all season. You need just enough offense, and you need the starting pitchers to just not, soil themselves on the mound, and you've got a fighting chance.
I mean, as we've said 1,000 times, it feels like for the offense to be good, not long-term, but just projectably good, I need Jose. I need Josh Naylor. Those two have to be in the middle of the lineup. If those two guys are going pretty well, I like the chances of this team being able to score enough runs. Lane Thomas heating up in September has been welcome. I think for him, personally, for the team, feeling like they didn't make one of the worst deadline pickups of all time, but also just for what this offense, for what they needed. David Fry not being as good as he was in the first half of the season, so somebody needed to really lift themselves to be part of that role so that Fry can be more of the bonus that he was supposed to be when the season first started against left-handed pitching or pinch hitting or however you wanted to use him. But it still comes down to Quan when he returns, yes. But the middle of that lineup, when Jose and Josh Naylor are hitting well, this offense seems good enough to me, but it's going to be up to them. And for a little bit, Jose was not. He was not swinging the bat very well. I hope that the home run or a little bit this series, we're seeing some sparks back to life for him. It'd be a great time of the year for that to happen. Naylor continues to just kind of be what he has been, which is a couple of great games and then kind of disappearing for a little bit. But if you get the offense from those two, I think this offense can be good enough to succeed in the playoffs. But is it going to happen? We just don't know.
They're at least closer to understanding what their optimal lineup or lineups are than a few weeks ago when we were like, I don't know, this Thomas guy just should only play against lefties, and Fry is just in such a funk, and I have no idea. Do you just play Noel every day? Brennan, Valera, Jonathan Rodriguez? I don't know. Lavastida's down there still. Bazana? It feels like they have some stability. It's not ideal, but they're in a better position than they were a few weeks ago. The rotation, that's a different question. That's also in part because of injuries. But I do feel like I was wondering because it felt like we had learned so little in July and August, and I'm like, are they going to get some answers, or are they going to have a formidable offense to take with them into the playoffs? And I think you got to look. It's not perfect. I mean, they played some sluggish games this weekend. Even when they won Sunday, like, the offense was just enough, but that's only because they tossed a shutout. It's not like it's been humming, and the power has pretty much disappeared here. But I think you feel better about it than you did in like August.
I think here's the word. I think the formula is there, and I think it can work. Am I betting the house on it? Probably not for them to be a great offense.
They need Quan.
But again,
they really need
Quan. Yeah. I mean, you need your three best hitters to perform like your three best hitters. If your best hitter is like, we said it was whatever it was, a show ago, and it was, hey, Brian Rocchio has been 2% above league average over the last month, and he's like your fourth best hitter. And great for Brian Rocchio because for a while that shortstop was just an absolute black hole in the bottom of the lineup, but you need your best hitters to be your best hitters for this offense to hum, like you said.
Yeah, so the magic number to clinch a playoff spot, I believe, is 3. So they could clinch as early as Tuesday, which is pretty wild. 2 weeks left in the regular season. Didn't have that on my bingo card back in March. Division is 9. 4-game lead with 12 to play. That's a pretty good spot to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And a chance to make the Twins' lives a living hell this week.
Or the other way around, but they've been horrific.
Yeah.
To the point where it's no longer a foregone conclusion. You laughed at me about bringing up the Tigers every single show, but the Tigers are still there, despite the fact that they traded their ace. Flaherty gone at the trade deadline, and then this team has been better than they were before that. And it's kind of the opposite of what happened last year, and it was a little bit earlier in September when they had that big 4-game series where the Guardians were kind of still alive, but not really, but they had hung around a little bit, and they needed a sweep. That's the Twins. If the Twins do not sweep, anything less than that, they're done in this division, which they probably already are, but they're absolutely done in this division if they don't get that sweep.
Yeah, I mean, they're 6.5 back, and they don't have the tiebreaker either. I mean, the division's done for them. But they're hanging on for dear life here. And then if you're the Tigers, I was thinking, if they had hung on to Flaherty, which made no sense at the time, not saying they should have, but if they were able to sneak in and get a wild card series and could go Scooble Flaherty in games 1 and 2, that's not a fun matchup for anybody. But instead, they'll have to, I don't know, they go with like a random bullpen game with Bo Brisky and someone else, and they have a no-hitter into the 8th inning every night. So maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Cy Young plus a guy that would have been right there in consideration too. Yeah, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch to have to face in the playoffs. But here's the thing. You just never know if things play out if you held on to them, does everything play out in the exact same way? Even go back to 2016. I know we're all guilty of saying, well, what if the Guardians would have had Salazar and Carrasco and everybody would have been healthy? Hey, maybe that means they win the World Series, or maybe it means they get bounced in the first round somehow. Baseball's weird. I don't know. Maybe the only reason why the Tigers got back into it is because they went old Major League style and got pissed off at GMs and owners and said, to hell with them, we're going to go out and win a wild card because you traded away one of our best pitchers.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, what if Michael Brantley didn't miss that season? What if... There's a lot of what ifs. There's 76 years of what ifs. It's...
Well, at least we're all set up for it this year. We're all ready for that World Series. Nothing could get in the way of a celebration, having the greatest show that we've ever had, the best numbers we've ever had. Nothing could get in the way.
Where would we do could we do it from a parade float?
From a parade float. What float would you want to ride?
They would not let us on. We'd probably have to make our own.
It's confirmed. It's confirmed.
Probably wouldn't be there anywhere. Anyway, I have a question for you along those lines. You know, a lot's been made of the Meisel Jinx over the years.
Rightfully so.
And I think I have the ultimate Meisel Jinx, though. But I don't know what it means.
Carry on.
As you know, my wife is due with our second child.
Congratulations.
During the World Series.
You SOB.
Now,
how selfish could you be? How did you not have the ability to think ahead on the calendar and plan that a little bit better?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't think that would be interrupting anything when we found out way back when in spring training.
Oh, no.
But I will say, I know at least one person. I know some others, but our buddy Alex Hooper, I know when he found out, immediately ran to his sports book of choice and placed a bet on the Guardians to be there because we know how the Meisel Jinx works. So is it jinxing myself that after 76 years, after 14 years of me covering this team, they'll win a World Series and I'll be in a hospital room cleaning bottles and diapers?
I can't believe you did this to me. Of all the selfish acts you've ever pulled, this is now I don't know what to make of it. Is bringing it to light now, does that cancel out any reverse jinx and now the jinx is back on? I don't pretend to know how the magic works. I only know that we briefly buried it in 2022.
Right, because Oscar Gonzalez had a 2-homer game in Minnesota as Cleveland took the AL Central by storm, and it was the day that I had written about his hitting prowess, his soon-to-be short-lived hitting prowess. I bring this up now because as we get closer and closer to the playoffs, I think I'm realizing there's been stress lurking in the back of my mind about how this is all going to play out. You know, and the thing about the playoffs, as you know, is you don't necessarily know what city you're going to be in the next day, right? You're sitting up in the press box. I remember when we were in Boston and they swept the Red Sox in 16, and the first thing we all had to do was cancel our flights back to Cleveland because we needed to go back to Cleveland the next morning, not 2 days from now after a game 4 that never happened. I mean, you're living day by day like that. And you have no idea if they're going to advance one round, if they're going to win the World Series, and then you follow them to the Today Show and then Disney World. I don't know. I mean, it'll have been 76 years. Like, you follow them around the universe if you have to.
Yeah,
so
forever.
There are days where I'm like, oh my God, this team has the feel. They have the magic. They have the vibe. They have the it factor of a team that wins.
Especially a year like this, where nobody in the American League is
Right.
doing anything to. So yeah, the National League is great, but they got to get through a gauntlet of themselves, and then what's left by the time they get to the World Series?
Yeah, so there are days where it's been like, okay, they just looked so sluggish and got swept by the Diamondbacks, and it's like, all right, I don't have to worry about it. Like, they'll play their playoff series. I'll have some time to prepare and build a crib and then have the baby, and the rest is history. And there are other times where I'm like, oh my God, this team is this is going to get a little stressful here in October, where it's like, can I go on this trip? Can I cover Game 7 of the ALCS in New York, or do I need to be home just in case? I don't know. And it's just fitting that this would be the case, that of course, it's like once there was a pregnancy, it like flipped a switch where, okay, the Guardians are actually going to be really good this year.
Do you feel that
That's
really
the
makes
Meisel Jinx at work?
that really makes you the main character here, though? Like
Well,
in your own
that's-
head, if you feel like after this long drought, the
Yeah.
only reason it would all come together is you. If that's not the most I am the center of the universe I've ever heard, I think that I would find it challenging to find any better.
But I do wonder. I don't know about you. I romanticize the hell out of sports, not just baseball. I mean, it's like the Cavs championship was acceptable in my mind because LeBron's story coming home was great, and Game 7 and dethroning the Warriors. You couldn't script that stuff. I want it to be the perfect script. It helps with the writing. It's when you read a book about this team that won a championship years and years earlier, you want it to be a good book. You want it to be gripping. You don't want it to be, this is the story of how they won their 4th consecutive championship, and they didn't really try in the regular season because it didn't matter, and they got to the playoffs and steamrolled everybody. How exciting. Wow. No, there needs to be adversity. There needs to be triumph, trials and tribulations, and moments of doubt and all that stuff. And there have been seasons where, like 2016, as we've talked about many times, I'm thinking, like, I had a book deal lined up, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be, this scene I'm watching right now is going to be the first chapter, and like, this is perfect. And you couldn't script this. And it felt like a movie that whole summer. And then there have been other seasons where, like 2018, I'm like, boy, if they somehow win the World Series, this is not going to be the most interesting book. I guess we could start with the Josh Donaldson trade and how that went down at 11:59 p.m. I don't know. So to me, this season fits, like, it's acceptable. It's been dramatic enough. It's been entertaining enough. It's had me hooked for a long time. It has a lot of the elements. I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know if that matters. I know to fans are usually just like, who cares? Just give me a ring. That's all I care about. As a writer, as someone who is talking about this, and we sit through this and we watch it day after day after day, like it's been entertaining enough, it's been gripping enough to where it fits the criteria I'm looking for.
I think the conclusion helps you frame things too. Like once you reach the end, you are able to mold past things to help you reach the conclusion, to make it more interesting, even if it wasn't a big deal in the moment. But just depending on how the story ends, then you can go back and pick up the pieces and put things together more creatively. I'm like you. I do want it to be an incredible story where there's a moment where you feel like nothing can stop this from happening. Then you need them to get buried a little bit. You need a comeback. All that adversity helps you shape the better story. And for you to be able to tell it someday to your second child, all of the anxiety and late night sleepless nights that forget that you go through, but you're putting your wife through. And let's not lose sight of, while you are, having more gray hair sprouting on top of your head because of this, no one is more concerned than your poor wife putting her through all this.
Of course, and I would never want to downplay that. And I'm not saying, it's been 76 years. Fans listening to this are like, shut the hell up. Like, I just want to see one before I die. And I'm not discounting that by any means. I'm just saying, because it's been 76 years, like, there's an opportunity for the team that ends it to, they're going to be talked about forever, right? Like, everyone on that Cavs team, from Matthew Dellavedova to Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye, are heralded in Cleveland and always
immortalized.
Yeah. And I think, Rajay Davis could have had a statue if there's no rain delay. So I think there's just opportunity here. If it's been 76 years, like, from my standpoint, as someone who's going to be telling these stories forever, like, there's automatically a level of, like, this team will be remembered forever and the story will be interesting. I just think that this particular team, like, the story would be wild. Like, it go ahead.
Right.
Go win it if you want. Like, even if I'm
even if
I'm in a hospital room, that's okay.
But I mean, to some degree, unless they really just have an incredible run again, which they will at some point, just an incredible run of dominance. I don't know when that's going to be, but it's going to happen again. Yeah. It almost feels like when you look at all of the great teams that have existed in Cleveland, the team that actually does, you're always going to look at it and go, how is that the team? How are they the guys that did what the other great teams that were full of Hall of Famers or an all-time great pitching staff in 2017? How did none of them win it, but this club did? And I'm wondering, is it going to come out of nowhere? Is it going to hit like that RKO that you didn't see coming? Or is it going to be a team like several years from now? Let's say they do experience that run of dominance again, and they're in year 3 of it. And they got close, and then they got close, but you're expecting it, and then they win it. It to me feels like it's going to come up out of nowhere.
It could. I mean, it's like the no-hitter discussion we had. You know, Joey Cantillo's got this perfect game going in with 2 outs in the 7th, and I'm sitting there going, all right, Len Barker was 43 years ago, and we've seen Corey Kluber come and go. We've seen CC Sabathia come and go. We've seen Shane Bieber be at the top of his craft. We've seen all these great pitchers over the years, and we've seen Carlos Carrasco come within 1 strike of a no-hitter. No one's done it, and you're telling me it's going to be Joey Cantillo for 7 innings plus Hunter Gaddis plus Emmanuel Clase against the White Sox, who are going to lose 124 games? I can't decide if that's an awesome story or like a disappointing one.
But see, it all adds to the story that you're looking for, because that was the start of when Cantillo was phenomenal. Then he had another good start, and then for whatever reason, we go back. Who knew that Bip Roberts wasn't going to be in the lineup? Tony Fernandez was.
Yeah.
Right? When he gets the ball off of his finger in batting practice.
The Ryan Merritt, him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So because Cobb could not stay healthy, because he got this stupid, you're cursing it in the middle of the night now that he's got this stupid finger thing. He can't get past it. Always blisters. And it's what opens the door for Joey Cantillo to be on the mound somehow in a big critical spot in the playoffs. And it never would have happened had Cobb not gotten injured. So you never know. You never know. Everything puts you in a position you never would have been in if this didn't happen. So I think it just added to your story that you can't wait to tell that you won't be here for.
I do think that baseball lends itself to that sort of narrative or development anyway, because it's 26 players on a roster, and you never know who's going to contribute. You never know who's going to be up at the plate. If Michael Martinez somehow socked a walk-off home run, it would have been truly.
I said that.
It would have been a consensus, like the craziest moment in baseball history. Everyone would know his name.
Yes. That would have been the zaniest moment in baseball history. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's like anyone can. I mean, Tony Fernandez wasn't supposed to start Game 6 in Baltimore in the 97 ALCS, but he lined a pitch off of Bip Roberts' thumb, so Tony Fernandez is in the lineup, and then Tony Fernandez hits the game winner. It's that kind of thing. But then, as you alluded to, in Game 7 of the World Series, Bip Roberts is sick. Tony Fernandez starts at second base, and he makes a costly error in the 11th inning. So you never know. In the NBA, in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, it's not like who was the last guy on the Cavs bench? I don't even remember. Like Dante Jones isn't taking the critical shot there. It's going to be LeBron or it's going to be Kyrie.
Yeah.
So it's different in baseball. Like, you don't get to choose who's up in what situation. Usually, you don't get to. A lot of times. I mean, who was pitching for the Cubs? Wasn't it like Montgomery?
Well, he started the inning, and then Carl Edwards, right?
Carl Edwards Jr. was in there. It's like, so it's baseball lends itself to stories like that, I guess, and especially with this team too. I don't know. It's going to be like Eli Morgan on the mound getting the final out in the 13th inning of Game 6 of the World Series.
That's what I mean. It feels like that's the way they're going to win it. That is the way they're going to win it.
Hedges go-ahead squeeze bunt.
After
Miles Straw making a game-saving catch in center.
6 dominant frames from Cantillo that got you there. Speaking of Cantillo, has he put himself on the radar to be a guy that could help in the postseason after 2 very good appearances back-to-back? I will tell you, I don't know. I'm sure I could dig in more on just the quality of the stuff, but it looks like a guy that was so much more confident, certainly pitching against the White Sox, but like a guy that got an ability to get his feet on the ground against the team that wasn't going to kick his teeth in from minute number 1. It did feel like he was just pitching with more belief in what he was accomplishing.
Yeah, I want to see more. I mean, the changeup is so good. It's always been his best pitch. It's been 2 outings. They also...
That's all you need. That's all you need with this group.
I mean, that's slim pickings with the rotation, and you're running out of time here. So, look, Cobb told me the other day he's praying and praying he'll get back to make at least 1 start before the end of the regular season and then be good to go for the playoffs. Who knows what will actually happen? They've got a lot of decisions to make. I mean, I think you can almost look at it as like Bybee and Boyd will probably get playoff starts, and then everybody else is just part of the pitching staff, and you can just adjust based on the opponent, where you're at in the series, who's available before or after off days. Maybe you just pick 11 pitchers after that, and you might go with a quote-unquote opener. Maybe it's Cantillo. Maybe it's McKenzie. Maybe it's Gavin Williams. Maybe it's Cobb. I have no idea. You've got 2 more weeks to try to just see as much of everybody as you can and just keep the 4 guys at the back healthy and make sure they don't get rusty. But I wouldn't overuse them because I would want to use guys who are on the bubble. Like, you need to see Nick Sandlin in a tough situation in a key game. You need to see Andrew Walters pitch in high leverage. You need to see what a lot of these guys can do. Like, I don't know. What can you learn about Gavin Williams in 2 weeks? What can you learn about Cantillo in 2 weeks? Those are the questions you got to answer.
I will say, eye test, Andrew Walters certainly looked like a guy that would be fun in the postseason. Yeah. He already has the stuff to compete at this level, and that's evidenced again by what I saw, the reactions to the batters. But more importantly, if we're looking for things that we can quantify, and everything that can be quantified in 2 innings, Zach, but among those 2 innings, he has the second best stuff plus on the team behind Emmanuel Clase. So if you sort it by pitchers that have reached at least 2 innings, it goes Emmanuel Clase number 1 in stuff plus at 146, and then Andrew Walters ahead of Cade Smith at 125. 2 plus pitches. The fastball is very, very good. It's at 130, which is, according to this, it's Walters and it's Eric Zabrowski who have the best stuff on pure fastballs.
He's another guy.
He's been kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, do you want a second lefty out there in the postseason? I don't know.
I just want guys who have the stuff, are locating it okay, and look like they could get good hitters out. I don't care. I mean, Zabrowski, the stuff numbers look very good. I would seriously consider him among the mix of guys that I would consider in the postseason.
There's still a lot to solve. They're in a good place. They could probably wrap up the division as long as they have just even an okay week. They could probably wrap up the division maybe over the weekend, next weekend, or early in the following week. But there's still some interesting questions. There will be some interesting roster decisions, a lot of conversations leading up to that. Because, to wrap a bow on it, like, the formula is there, so how do you make sure you have premium ingredients?
Well, I think we know. I think you know what you need at the store, but is the store going to have it? I don't know. Have to see when we get there. It is nice, though, when you don't have to worry a second about the 9th inning, or the 8th inning, or the 7th inning, or the 6th inning. Like, it's ridiculous.
Can those 4 just cover 9 innings at a time?
Come back next week. Stay tuned. We'll find out.